In this episode, we interview Lachlan Delchau-Jones, who's an 18-year-old e-commerce entrepreneur. We'll get it formalised.
No worries.
All right. Lachlan, thank you very much for jumping on the Reach Your Potential Now podcast. This is episode number 11 for me. I'm really excited. Today with me, I've got a former Binnacle alumni or former Binnacle student, now Binnacle alumni. Lachlan, how are you, mate?
Good. It's good to be on.
Thanks very much, mate. I know you're busy. You got a few things happening at the moment, so it's good to chat and good to connect with people through these digital platforms. So thanks very much for giving up your time.
It is. No worries. Glad to be here.
Awesome, mate. We might just get you to introduce yourself, what you do, where you've come from, what school, and go from there.
Yeah, easy. So, like stated, my name's Lachlan Delchau-Jones. I was actually in St. Augustine's College out in Ipswich as of last year in November. I graduated. During school, I did a business certificate 3. I did a business certificate 2 and 1, of course, but I also did a fitness certificate 3 all through Binnacle. I did a retail cert 3 that was through an external RTO. During school, did all those subjects, did math, did English, religion, graduated school in November of last year. And we're here now 6 months later in unprecedented times. So
yeah, definitely.
Things move quickly, hey?
very, very quickly, mate. And what was your reason
quickly
for choosing the certificate courses versus the OP pathway?
So I initially it was grade 11 or grade 12 that we started choosing the pathways. And it was one of those things. I started as an OP kid. So I started OP just because 85% of my cohort was also going OP. And it was one of those things that go OP, doesn't work out, drop it. Started it, dropped it very quickly. At that time I was only doing, I was doing my 2 certs, but I was doing 1 or 2 certs. It's going OP, dropped it very quickly. I was one of those kids that I know during school that I wasn't overly like math and English smart. I knew the basics of it. I wasn't like, if you try and talk to me about Pythagoras' theorem, whatever it's called, all that stuff, I've got no idea on it. I know how to do all the other numbers, but all the other irrelevant stuff that I deal with today, and that I didn't know much about during school. But then, went on to do the Binnacle and do the certs. So the business, fitness, and retail. And I did that just to give me enough coverage across as many grounds as possible. So retail, if I wanted to venture into there after school, business, of course, for the fundamentals. And if I wanted to, of course, get into the fitness scene, but I thought put as many certificates under my wing as possible, because it's just going to, why not for starters? Because it's just going to open up a bunch of opportunities. I'm going to get all my points. And I got more points than I'm ever going to need. And it taught me a lot of stuff across a lot of different platforms and it also made my year 12 and year 11 experience quite enjoyable. It also, the certs, there's a lot of work involved with them, but I know from my standpoint, I was able to invest a lot of time in other things I wanted to, such as what I've got now, my businesses. So it was one of those things I could do that, and I passed everything. I got the qualifications, but at the same time, I was able to invest the time I wanted to into my own ventures while doing all that. So I was learning and implementing.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. And would you say that you sort of probably learnt more life skills in those certificate courses versus some of the general or applied subjects?
Yeah, no, definitely. Well, for starters, the subjects those subjects I picked, the English, the math, and religion at my school was mandatory. You had to do that. My options were business, fitness, and retail. So it was one of those things that I chose them. So like any subject that a kid chooses, they're going to invest more time into it. They want to be there. So I learned all my fundamentals through there. Like business is business, customer service is customer service. There's a procedure you got to follow. There's a person you got to be when trying to deal with business and customers and all that type of stuff. And that's what I learned through there. Fitness. I'm not a personal trainer. I used to play cricket, used to play a bit of rugby. Haven't done much of that in most recent years because I've been invested here. But even in that regard, working with people closely as a cert 3 in fitness in regards to personal training, working with people, understanding people, catering to other people's needs. You know what I mean? It's stuff that I may not implement today, but I can tell you that if I went through the classic high school route of doing history because I had to do history, then I would not have learnt those skills in that regard and doing them,
For sure. And you've probably found those skills are really translatable now into your current businesses.
Yeah. Well, like I said, it was one of those things that I was doing it. I was doing the business search while running my businesses, and no one in the classroom knew that. Not my teacher, not my fellow students. No one knew that. I was learning, but I was also implementing. It was one of those things that, like, the fundamentals are the fundamentals, but there's also a lot of trial and error involved. You can learn a lot of different things. I can tell you that through the fundamentals of business, I have not learned by myself. I learned through Binnacle. I learned through the certs.
Yep.
In relation to my direct e-commerce ventures, that's stuff that is just trial and error. But business is business, and that comes from there. I started. I did a business. Was it a certificate one? I think it was a certificate one in grade 9, may have been, or grade 10. That's where it kind of started for me. There was no direct correlation at the time. I wasn't going, oh, there's business certs, so I'm going to start running businesses. It was just something that there became an interest there because it was a certificate one. It's next to nothing. And it was one of those things that the interest grew. And then what do you know? I'm now starting to run my own stuff on the side here while actually doing it as well. So being in the boat of, because everyone in my classroom was always learning the whole time. However, I was learning, but then I was also going home 6 hours after school and working my ass off, trying to do it, applying it. You know what I mean? Like, it's just one of those things that I had a very different experience to everybody else in the classroom, because 25% of the classroom wanted to go to university and do something in management or business. The other quarter was just in it because they wanted to be in it for points. They don't care about business. They're not doing business. Yep. And then I was in the middle of it with no one knowing, while I was applying it every day, and I was seeing a positive return on investment. You know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure.
It was really interesting.
Yeah, and you mentioned a couple of businesses, probably timely time to check in and what you're actually doing. So what have you done since sort of you finished at the end of last year, or what did you start your businesses last year, and where are they at, and you care to share a bit there?
Yeah, of course. So I started in the dropshipping business model, which is something that is it was perfect for me. Like, why I praise the business model was because it worked for me. It was one of those things that I did it. I failed, of course, like anything. But when it worked, I invested and I got the money and I put it into places that I could actually leverage another skill of mine or put it into something else that could grow something. So one of those things that I started doing last year, and that was very left wing for year 12 high school students, was I was going, hey, look, if people aren't going to put me on their stages, I'm going to create my own stage. And I'm going to fly myself around the country and I'm going to speak to kids and I'm going to sell the tickets. I'm going to buy the venues. I'm going to do all that. I'm going to arrange the event. I'm going to schedule it, do everything, create the PowerPoints, and I'm going to put myself on a stage. So for a high school student who was normally stressing through grade 12, going, okay, end of the year's coming up, this is horrible. I got no plan, no direction, I'm failing. To do the 3 Cert 3s, those normal subjects, and also go, hey, look, screw it. Let's go to Sydney this weekend. Let's go to Melbourne this weekend. I was very fortunate, but it was one of those things, the dropshipping business model gave me the cash and the cash flow to be able to invest it elsewhere. So since then and nowadays, I work with a lot of influencers behind the scenes, stuff I don't put out publicly on my Instagram. I work with a lot of musicians, fitness trainers, like personal trainers. I work with a lot of influencers, just bottom line, that have no direction but a massive following online. And that stuff I don't put out publicly. Also, I build brands and businesses for those people. I'm in the subscription game for myself. I run subscription businesses for myself and for other people. I'm in the game of drop shipping still. I do that. I've got a private label product, which is going to be announced publicly in the next couple of months.
Awesome.
And a majority of that I don't publicly put out there, just because I don't feel like I need to. The thing is, a lot of people want to get to step 5 and step 6. And I guess that's where I am now, with multiple ventures under my wing and doing multiple things. And a lot of people kind of want to get to here where they've got an array of things. But where I direct people is to where I started with dropshipping. It worked for me. It's not going to work for everyone, but it worked for me. So if you're going to start there. A lot of people want to be right here, right now, but they can't. You got to start somewhere. So jump back, start at dropshipping, see if you can get it to work. The business model of that, like, I learned so much about Facebook ads, marketing. I was actually implementing my customer service skills, that I learned through Binnacle, all that type of stuff, and all the fundamentals was, I could implement. So yeah, I've got an array of things going right now and just putting my hand in as many pies as possible.
Yeah, for sure. And how old are you now, mate? 18?
I'm 18. I turned 18 in January. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, happy birthday for January. But yeah, that's awesome, mate. In terms of drop shipping, is that something you just sort of learnt through? You said they're tried and tested. Just sort of watching a lot of YouTube, those types of things. Yeah,
I started watching a bit of YouTube, but it was one of those things that I can't. When I was consuming content, from an incredible source, so not through a qualification or an RTO, through some other guy. When I was consuming content through some random guy, it was one of those that I always had the mind of, 2 cents. I was going to take my 2 cents out of it. And when I actually took the 2 cents out of those videos, it was one of those things that I started applying very minimally, but I applied from a very, a wide range of sources. So at the end of the day, my 2 cents from 15 different sources added up to something that I believed in, gave it a go, failed, gave it a go, failed, trial and error, rinse and repeat,
Yeah, for sure. If you don't win, you learn, right? Yeah. You apply those skills and then into the next one. It's
literally
the journey of life, the highs and lows, the peaks and the troughs. So
many trial and errors every day. Even today, I've got no doubt today I'm going to have some really good wins today, but I bet you as well I'll have some losses every day. I can't predict it. I can't see it coming, but when it comes, it comes. Yeah. And you just got to deal with it. That's something that I've also really stood by in the last 12 months. A lot of people overthink like starting ventures and starting things for themselves. I know I was a big one of overthinking what people thought of me, overthinking of what could go wrong. And nowadays it's just like, screw it. I'm just going to do it. If something goes wrong, I'll deal with it. There's no, if it comes to me in 2 weeks, 3 weeks, I'll deal with it then and I'll put all my focus into fixing it. But I'm just going to go with it. I'm just going to start this, get it out there. Whatever happens, happens. Yeah, and that's something I wish I did 2-3 years ago, but I didn't.
Yeah, and I think, you're right. A lot of people they feel vulnerable to put themselves out there, whether it's, setting up a YouTube channel. They feel as though someone's going to, have a negative point to say to them, and that's sort of, their deterrent. And as you said it's about starting, just giving it a go.
It's one of those things that I know, especially like just coming out of high school myself, I know since year 7, I've been just trying to put myself out there. Whether it's through YouTube content, whether it's just through anything like these businesses, I've always kind of been putting myself out there publicly or just trying to. And I can tell you, and I know it's the same because everyone I've spoke to musicians who've made it massive in America, in LA, that tour the world. I've spoke to musicians that, are small. I've spoke to influencers that go around the world. And everybody, I can tell you, that started during high school, whether it's here in Brisbane, Sydney, Melbourne. I think it might be an Australian thing. It's never praised. You always have those kids at school who are always against it, always see the bad every time they start. I was with a really famous musician yesterday. I'm not going to say his name out of privacy, but he was telling me that one of his most best songs, it's got 500 million streams. He created that during school. And when he created it, everyone gave him flack for it. Everyone. One of those things as well. When I started putting out here that, look, I'm not going to go the part-time job route. I'm going to get rid of my part-time jobs. This is what I'm doing. This is what I'm running. I've got a lot of people who want to try and do what I'm doing, and I'm going to motivate them however I can. And if I've got to put it out publicly, I will. And I copped a lot of stuff for that. And I can tell you, at the end of last year, everyone in my school that had something nasty to say about what I was doing, I had their resume by the end of the year, wanting them to work for me. I had their resume. Same thing with the teachers. They never really saw it as the best thing I was doing. They, I guess, were supportive, but I guess while you're in the classroom, you're classroom.
Yeah. Sure. Yeah. It's not.
So it's very left wing. It is.
Yeah. It's not that traditional model.
I've connected with a few teachers. You're spot on. I've connected with a few teachers now that I've got lots and lots of questions, but it's not a traditional model by far. And it's something that directly within my school, I don't know if it's happened before or close to.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, it's one of those. Yeah, and it's important because obviously it's those 21st century skills, and you've mentioned them: customer service, personal relationships, the collaboration, which is key fundamentals which help drive business in any field. So they're really important things. You sound really busy, mate. What does a day in the life of an 18-year-old entrepreneur look like?
Jeez, wake up as early as I can. Normally, I like to try and wake up well and truly before 7. But with that being said, some nights I'm up till 2, some nights I'm up till 3, 4, some nights it's all night. But if I can wake up at 5, I try and wake up at 5. If I'm up all night, I'll try and just give myself a couple extra hours in the morning. But first and foremost, when I wake up, what is it? Email, it's Facebook ads, looking at the back end of my stores, assessing how the night went, assessing how everything went overnight, having a look, then fixing everything that went wrong, getting into the emails, responding to all my emails across all my email accounts that I have to. Then it's what? Facebook, it's like responding to all my messages across Facebook, Instagram, WhatsApp, WeChat, iMessage, literally everything. And then it's, like you said, what I've implemented since our last conversation, the 9 before 9.
Yeah, awesome.
I've been doing that every day, and I've been telling people that I've been speaking to on the phone. I have 9 before 9.
Yeah. And you found that's paid a bit of
That's something that I
dividends
find.
just to build
Yeah, that
relationships and
has.
strengthen relationships?
You're spot on, because it's one of those things that during a day, I work with a lot of different people in a lot of different ventures. And it's one of those things that sometimes when I'm not focusing on that venture, I'm not talking to that person. So that 9 before 9, every single day, I'm talking to the people that I need to be talking to. And
Yeah,
that's something that since our last conversation I've implemented, and it's
that's
worked wonders for me thus far. So
that's awesome. And that's through what,
yeah,
phone calls or text or a
that's
Facebook
phone calls
message?
and text. Yeah,
Just
yeah,
anything,
FaceTime.
just to reach out, just showing a bit
Yeah.
of, humane to other people,
Morning, mate.
just a
How
bit
are
of
you? How's
empathy.
business? How's
Yeah.
life? Yeah.
Just a bit of empathy,
Yeah, no, it's really,
just checking in, seeing how they're going, especially during this time of isolation. We really need to enforce that. We're checking in with people, see how they're coping, see how businesses are coping, because obviously everyone's
exactly.
struggling.
Yeah, a lot of people are losing motivation as well. I know a few of my business partners, worked really hard over the last 18 months, and they've worked really hard overseas and over here, and they've come back and, all of a sudden they're in complete lockdown, can't do anything. And then when you go from being so hectic, like the moment I left school last year, I was on flights all the way to the start of this year. From November 16th, I caught planes every single other day. I was flying around straight after graduation. I flew straight to Adelaide. Like I was just going full speed. And then to kind of get to a point now that it's 6 months later, you can't really go anywhere. It's definitely a bit of it's a change. I know that I'm coping with it fairly well, but I know a lot of other people, are losing motivation, going to that Netflix, going to just being lazy during this time because they're just being complacent. They don't feel like they have to do anything, so they're not going to do anything. That's why I created my coronavirus project store, just to prove it's possible. Next, no work was put in, couple hours a day, and you can grow it to some really good figures.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, we've chatted before around, we should be utilizing this time to upskill versus, being lazy. Utilize this time to, self-educate, level up so that if you're out of a job, you can, become more employable should a job or a different role maybe potentially open up in the future. So.
Yeah, exactly right. Yeah, trying to get whatever you can. I know a lot more online courses have become available for people to try and level up and whatnot. And again, that was another thing with the qualifications I did during school, the Cert 3s in business, fitness, and retail. It was also a thing that at the time when I started getting into all of it, I didn't think where I am now was going to be my full-time career. I didn't think I was going to be full-time at this. So during that time as well, it was let's build up the resume. Let's get all these certificates on my resume. Let's get my CPR cert. What else did I get? I got a first aid. I got sport, recreation, fitness, business, retail, everything I possibly could. Let's just build the arsenal and slap it on there. Because I wanted to make sure no matter what my position was now, whether I was where I am now or if I was in a position of hunting for work, I wanted to be more employable than the guy to my right. I wanted to be able to stand out, whether it was just through my conversation or my skills actually, or if it was through my resume. I just wanted to make sure I was loaded.
Yeah, for sure, mate. That's awesome. I 100% agree. Yes, kids need to differentiate between the guy to the left, the guy to the right, and there's so much power in having a certificate course or having an additional course that you're showing an employer that you've gone a little bit above and beyond the general or traditional model of education. So, I take my hat off to you, mate. It's awesome.
It is. Yeah, it's one of those things that a lot of kids that just follow the traditional OP pathway just come out with that number. And a lot of them more times than not come out just with that number, a little bit of a vision, but a vision that can get deterred really easy because they're not. Like I know a lot of my friends that have gone to university this year straight out of school have deferred or changed subject because they weren't clear, but they left school with that number. During school, they did nothing towards what they wanted to be doing. If they want event management, they didn't do any of that during school. It's just something they kind of wanted to do. Yeah, so again, with what I did, especially in the early days, I just tested the water as much as I could from 14 because I wanted to figure it out. Whether it was going to be something that directly was going to teach me through school or it was a school subject or anything. I just had to figure it out for myself, I guess. And then if school doubled up with it in what happened here with my business certs as well as what I'm doing in business, it's one of those things that just worked out perfectly for me. Doesn't happen for everybody else. Didn't happen for the hundreds of other kids in my cohort.
Yeah, for sure, mate. And that's probably the next question is, what advice you'd have for the younger generation about, pursuing their dreams and how can they educate themselves on e-commerce?
Yeah, it's got to be getting in as young as you can. It's got to be starting as young as you possibly can. I know if I wanted to start what I'm doing right now, where I was 4 years ago, I couldn't. My overheads now being out of school, it's massive compared to when I was 15, 16, 17, 18. It was not 18, sorry, but, you know, back at home when you're with your parents, got a supportive family, or you're under a roof and you're not paying massive bills and all that, you've got next to no overheads. You've got a part-time job. It's the prime time to test the waters and find something for yourself. You know, more times than not, a lot of the kids I speak to on a daily basis, it's one of those things that I try and tell them what I've done, and they they understand what I've done. And that was, I went to school during the hours of 8 to 3, and it's what I did during those lunch breaks. It's what I did after school. It's what I did on weekends. It's where my priorities lied and what I wanted. I established that young. I knew that I wasn't going to be, if I was going to be going out getting rowdy on weekends, I wasn't going to be able to put myself in the boat I am now. I knew I wasn't going to complain about my current position if I wasn't working for my current position that I am in now. I would have done all of that. So it's one of those things that I had my priorities. I started when I was young. I tested the waters. I found out, luckily, what worked for me when I did. Still happened for some. It won't happen for others. But yeah, I just tested the water young, and I believe that's what put me in the boat now. But it's, trial and error, and that's something that I stand by. Get your feet in. If it doesn't work, it doesn't work. But you learn. Like, even with Facebook ads, when I run a Facebook ad, back when I was starting, if I ran a Facebook ad and I didn't see a return on my ad spend, I thought I lost my money. Nowadays, if I run an ad and I know that it doesn't make, or it's not profitable, it's one of those things that, okay, what can I learn from this? What can I action from it? Because if I can action the data or take the data away from something or learn something from it, it's paid for itself. It's fine.
For sure, mate.
Yeah.
No, that's awesome, mate. Yeah, I mean, it's been really enjoyable to have a chat to you, and it's good to hear, the passion and the excitement that you have, and the hustle and grind. It's good to see that the work ethic still exists in young teenagers.
Yeah.
So it's a bit of
it's been a long ride, but it's just starting, isn't it?
For sure, mate. Thank you very much for jumping on, mate. I might just end it there if that's all right, but I appreciate your time jumping in.
No worries.